Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I'm 18 and I've been deaf and mute since birth. I'm also partially blind in my left eye from a childhood accident when I fell off my bike and hit a tree branch. My parents died in a car crash when I was 12, so my older sister has been taking care of me ever since. She's 28 now and just got married last month. They went on their honeymoon to Europe, leaving me alone for the first time in years. My sister usually comes with me everywhere because of my disabilities, but she deserved this trip. I've been practicing going to familiar places by myself, and I felt ready to handle a simple shopping trip. There was this new supermarket that opened up about 3 blocks from our house, and I needed to pick up some batteries for my hearing aid backup device and a few other things. I threw on a red polo shirt that morning without thinking much about it. It was just a regular shirt I'd had for ages. Nothing special about it. I grabbed my notebook and pen like always, since writing things down is usually the easiest way to communicate with people who don't know sign language. The supermarket was pretty busy for a weekday afternoon. I made my way to the electronics section, which was tucked away in the back corner. The layout was still new to me, so I was taking my time figuring out where everything was located. I was scanning the shelves when I noticed this elderly gentleman trying to reach some DVDs on the top shelf. He looked like he was in his 70s, and even standing on his tiptoes, he couldn't quite get to what he wanted. Since I'm pretty tall at 6'2", I walked over and grabbed the DVD set he was pointing at. He smiled and clearly mouthed his thanks to me. I could read his lips easily since he spoke slowly and faced me directly. He patted my shoulder and headed toward the checkout area. After that, I went back to looking for batteries. The selection was pretty overwhelming, with dozens of different types spread across multiple shelves. I was reading the packages to figure out which ones I needed when I felt someone grab my left wrist really hard. I turned around and came face to face with this woman who looked like she was in her late 40s. She had short blonde hair and was wearing a lot of makeup that looked kinda smeared. Before I could even process what was happening, she slapped me across the face. The slap stung, but what confused me more was that she was talking really fast and angrily. I tried to follow her lips, but she was moving her mouth too quickly and turning her head side to side. I could only catch a few words here and there like you, ignore, job, and what looked like rude. I raised my hands and started signing to her that I was deaf, hoping she'd understand and slow down. That was the worst thing I could have done. She started yelling louder. I could tell she was really angry now, but I still couldn't make out what she was saying. I pulled out my notebook and pen and started writing that I was deaf and mute and couldn't hear her. I was only halfway through writing when she snatched both the notebook and pen right out of my hands and threw them across the aisle. Then she slapped me again, harder this time, and shoved me backward. I lost my balance and fell to the ground, hitting my shoulder against the metal shelf. A few packages of batteries scattered around me. That's when I heard footsteps running over. A store employee, a guy who looked like he was in his 20s, with curly brown hair, rushed up to us. He helped me get back on my feet and asked what was going on. Before I could sign anything to him, the woman started yelling at him too. She was gesturing wildly and pointing at me, but since she had her back turned to me, I couldn't read her lips at all. She went on for what felt like several minutes, clearly complaining about me. When she finally stopped talking, I quickly signed to the employee that I couldn't hear or speak. Thank God he seemed to understand some basic signs. The employee told the woman that I was deaf and mute and couldn't hear her. The woman looked back at me like she didn't believe it for a second. She started shaking her head and saying something that looked like she thought I was faking it. She tried to grab me again, but I stepped backward out of her reach. I picked up my notebook from where she'd thrown it and wrote a message asking the employee to call the police because she had assaulted me. The employee read my note and nodded immediately. He pulled out his phone and told me he was calling security and the police right away while keeping an eye on both of us. The woman must have realized what was happening because she suddenly tried to walk away quickly toward the front of the store. But the store had security guards and one of them stopped her before she could reach the exit. She started arguing with the security guard too, but he wasn't having any of it. The police showed up about 10 minutes later. Two officers came in and talked to the employee first. He explained the whole situation while pointing at me and then at the woman who was now sitting on a bench near customer service. One of the officers came over to me. He was an older guy with gray hair who spoke slowly and made sure I could see his lips when he asked me to tell him what had happened. I wrote out everything in my notebook, starting from when I helped the elderly man with the DVDs to when the woman threw my notebook and pushed me down. The officer read through it and asked a couple of follow-up questions by writing them down for me. Then both officers went to check the security cameras with the store manager. They were gone for about 15 minutes before coming back. The officer told me that the footage showed my account was true and asked if I wanted to press charges for assault. I wrote yes in big letters and underlined it twice. That's when things got satisfying. They walked over to the woman and told her she was under arrest. She started protesting loudly, but they put handcuffs on her anyway and led her out to their police car. The store manager came over to me afterward. He was really apologetic about the whole thing and explained that the woman had told their employee that I worked there and was ignoring her when she asked for help. She had been standing on my left side where I can't see as well, so I had no idea she was even there. That explained everything. She thought I was an employee because of my red shirt and got angry when I didn't respond to her. The manager offered me a 50% discount on everything I was buying as an apology for what happened in their store. I thanked him by writing a note and picked up the batteries I came for, plus a few other things I needed. When I got home, I texted my sister about what happened. Her response was immediate. She called me right away using video chat so we could sign to each other and told me she couldn't believe someone had done that to me. Did I mention my sister is a lawyer? She specializes in disability rights cases, and she was livid when she heard the details. She told me not to worry about anything because she was handling this case personally when she got back. She said this woman was going to regret ever laying a hand on me, and that she would make sure she got the maximum penalty allowed by law. The court date is set for about 40 days from now. My sister will be back from her honeymoon by then, and she's already started preparing the case remotely. She says we have a solid assault charge plus potential disability discrimination claims. All I wanted was some batteries. Instead, I ended up with a legal case and a story that my sister says will probably end up costing this woman a lot more than just an apology. I'll update everyone after the court hearing. Something tells me it's going to be very interesting. I'm a photographer, so I had accumulated a pretty decent collection of camera equipment over the years. Professional lenses, lighting gear, backup cameras, the works. It was my livelihood, and I kept most of it in a spare room I'd converted into a makeshift studio. I'd never really worried about security before. The complex seemed safe enough, and I figured who would want to steal a bunch of camera gear anyway. That weekend I'd gone to stay with my girlfriend at her place across town. We'd been dating for about 8 months, and I was spending more and more time over there. I remember feeling relaxed and happy when I left Sunday evening to head back to my place. That feeling didn't last long. When I walked up to my front door, I knew something was wrong. The door frame was splintered and my door was slightly ajar. My heart started racing when I pushed it open and stepped inside. The place had been absolutely destroyed. Drawers were pulled out and dumped everywhere, cushions were thrown around, and my electronics cabinet was completely empty. I immediately called the police and spent the next 2 hours going through everything with the responding officers. The damage was devastating. $18,000 worth of camera equipment, my laptop, gaming console, and even my car keys were all gone. The officers took a report and told me a detective would be in touch. That was the last I heard from them for a while. The next day I found out my neighbor had also been hit. They'd taken his computer, but more importantly, they'd stolen his car keys and his car. My keys were missing too, but I drive a manual transmission, so I guess they decided his automatic was an easier target. I spent the entire next day trying to get someone at the police department to take this seriously. Every time I called, I got transferred to someone else or told the detective wasn't available. I was getting pretty frustrated when something incredible happened. Around 10 p.m. that night, my phone buzzed with a notification. My laptop had just connected to the internet. I pulled up the tracking app and the location was showing a hotel less than half a mile from my condo. These guys weren't exactly criminal masterminds. I grabbed my jacket and rode my bike down to the hotel. The desk clerk was polite but said they couldn't tell me which room the signal was coming from, which I understood. But when I was walking back to my bike, I spotted my neighbor's car just sitting on the street like nothing had happened. I called my neighbor immediately and we decided to take matters into our own hands. We called AAA and the police basically stole the car back and had it towed to a different location in the neighborhood. Since the thieves still had the keys, we figured they could just come back and take it again if we left it there. My neighbor was already planning to have his car rekeyed, but at least we gotten it back. I tried to convince the responding officers to come with me to talk to the hotel desk clerk, but they said they couldn't do anything without a warrant or backup, and I was starting to realize I was going to have to handle this myself. The next morning, I got up early and called the detective assigned to my case. Miracle of miracles. He actually answered. He told me my file was sitting right on his desk and he was just getting ready to look at it. I explained that I knew where my stolen stuff was and asked if I should go down to the hotel and wait for the thieves to come out so I could confront them. The detective told me that was a terrible idea and not to do it. Of course, that's exactly what I did. I figured if I forced his hand, maybe he'd actually show up and do something about it. Sure enough, about an hour later, the detective and his partner met me at the hotel. I was just introducing myself when three young guys walked past us through the lobby. One of them was wearing my distinctive black camera backpack. I pointed out that the guy was carrying my stolen backpack, and the detectives immediately stopped all three of them. They started searching them and found my laptop, my tablet, another laptop I didn't recognize, and a set of keys. We'd caught them red-handed. But here's where things got frustrating again. Even though these guys were walking out of a hotel room carrying $3,000 worth of my stolen property, apparently that wasn't enough probable cause to search their room. The detectives knocked on the door but couldn't enter without a warrant. At least my insurance ended up covering most of the loss, so I wasn't completely out of luck financially. But I wanted to see some real payback for these guys. Only one of the three had been carrying stolen property, so he was the one who got hit with the receiving stolen property charge. The case went to court, and he ended up pleading out to a year in jail. Not too shabby. But the real satisfaction came during my victim impact statement. I stood up in that courtroom and told everyone exactly how these guys had made me feel unsafe in my own home. I talked about how the insurance company had to pay out thousands of dollars because of their actions. I requested full restitution plus the cost of the new security system we'd had to install. The whole time I was talking, this guy was staring at me like he wanted to jump over the table and strangle me. Apparently, during his interrogation, he'd been absolutely furious and completely confused about how he'd gotten caught. I told the judge that I'd be happy to explain to the court exactly how we tracked them down. I went into detail about the laptop tracking, finding the car, and catching them leaving the hotel with my stuff. His face showed anger and shock that his foolproof plan had fallen apart. After the sentencing, I gave an interview to the local newspaper about the whole experience. Now, whenever anyone searches for his name online, the first thing that comes up is an article about how he got caught because he was dumb enough to connect a stolen laptop to the internet. I also got a protection order against him just to be safe. He's supposed to be released soon, but with my new security system and cameras, I'm not too worried. Plus, I doubt he's stupid enough to come back to the same neighborhood where he got caught so easily. He now has a felony on his record that's going to follow him around for the rest of his life. I started working in higher education right after finishing my master's degree in student affairs. I thought I'd found my calling when I landed a position as a faculty advisor at a small public college. A few years ago, I was promoted to primary faculty advisor and chair for admissions for our health science program. Before you get impressed by that title, let me be clear about what it actually meant. I was the lowest person on the academic food chain who could be trusted with paperwork but somehow I ended up with all the responsibility for overseeing admissions to one of the most competitive programs at our college. The health science program had been running successfully for years, consistently producing graduates who went on to excellent careers. But the administration decided they wanted to make the department even stronger by adding a new degree option. The brilliant part was that this new track would largely use the same classes as the existing program, so it wouldn't cost much to implement. All they had to do was create one new 8-credit course, and voila, we'd have a whole new degree to offer. Since I was so low on the academic hierarchy, I had zero input in designing this new program. But as a sole advisor, I was expected to learn everything about it so I could guide current students and prospective applicants. I spent weeks reviewing curriculum documents, talking to faculty, and trying to understand how this new degree would work. That's when I discovered the problem. While reviewing all the paperwork, I noticed that the new 8-credit course had been added to the course schedule and included in the college catalog, but it wasn't officially listed as a requirement for the new major in the curriculum database. This might sound like a minor clerical error, but in the world of higher education, it was a disaster waiting to happen. Financial aid won't cover courses that aren't officially required for a student's major, and students wouldn't be able to graduate if required courses weren't properly listed in their degree requirements. I immediately brought this to my supervisor's attention during our weekly meeting. My supervisor thanked me for catching the error and asked if I could reach out to someone who might know how to fix this. I told them I'd send an email to the curriculum coordinator to see what our options were. I crafted a detailed email to the middle management person who handled curriculum issues, explaining the problem and proposing some short-term solutions until the official curriculum committee could meet to make the changes permanent. I thought I was being proactive and helpful. Then came a week of complete silence. Growing concerned about the timeline, I sent a polite follow-up email asking if they'd had a chance to review my previous message and whether there was anything else I could do to help resolve the issue. The next morning, my computer chimed with a new email. Then I saw it was from one of the vice presidents, and the recipient list included my supervisor, multiple deans, 2 department heads, and another VP. The email was brutal. The VP wrote that I had seriously overstepped my bounds by attempting to make changes I had no authority to implement. She said they were perfectly capable of doing their jobs without interference from faculty advisors who didn't understand proper procedures. She expected me to stay in my lane going forward and focus on my actual responsibilities. I sat there staring at my computer screen, feeling like I'd been slapped in the face in front of half the administration. My supervisor didn't even bother to defend me or clarify that they'd asked me to look into the issue. Fine, I dropped it completely. I was already looking for other jobs anyway. The politics at this place were exhausting, and this email just confirmed that I needed to get out. I had interviews lined up at other institutions and was planning to leave at the end of the academic year. 3 months passed, and I mostly forgot about the whole curriculum issue. I was focused on helping current students with their applications for the following year and dealing with the usual end-of-semester chaos. Then, 10 days before the new course was supposed to start with the first cohort of 10 students, my phone started ringing constantly. First, it was someone from the financial aid office calling about those students in the new health science track. She explained there was a problem with their aid packages for the 8-credit course. The system wasn't recognizing the course as required for their major, so financial aid wouldn't cover it. Each student was going to have to pay out of pocket, and we were talking about significant money. Before I could respond, I had another call from the registrar's office with the same issue, then another from a department head. By the end of the day, I'd received calls and emails from all over campus, all asking me to help fix this mess before the VP found out about it. The irony was perfect. I forwarded the VP's email from 3 months earlier to everyone who had contacted me, along with a brief message explaining that I had been told to stay out of curriculum matters and focus on my actual responsibilities. I noted that the administration had made it clear my input was not welcome, and that they were perfectly capable of handling these issues without my interference. I made it very clear that this was officially not my problem. The panic really set in when people realized what had happened. To fix this properly, someone would need to propose the curriculum change to the committee, then get it approved by the executive board. Given the timeline and various procedural requirements, there was no way this could happen before the class started. In desperation, the VP contacted the state chancellor's office to see if they could approve some kind of emergency exception or workaround. The state officials reviewed the situation and promptly denied any exceptions. They made it clear that proper procedures had to be followed, regardless of the college's poor planning. With no other options, the administration was forced to eat the entire cost of the 8-credit course for all 10 students. The course fee alone was over $25,000, not including the additional administrative costs of sorting out the mess. Eventually, there were some very uncomfortable meetings in the weeks that followed, with lots of finger-pointing and blame-shifting. Several people tried to suggest that I should have done more to prevent the problem, but my supervisor finally spoke up and confirmed that I had indeed tried to address the issue months earlier, only to be told to stay out of it. A few weeks later, I received an email from the same vice president who had chewed me out. She thanked me for my diligence in identifying the curriculum issue earlier that year and said that in the future, I shouldn't hesitate to bring similar issues to their attention immediately. I printed that email and kept it in my desk drawer until I left for my new job 6 months later. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.